What's up, guys? It's Mr. Bringle, and today we're going to be looking at some graphing practice, trying to figure out where to put my face. Don't know. Um, so you can see here we've got your graphing practice assignment, and let's go through the directions first. It says decide which type of graph would represent each set of data. There will be one line graph, one bar graph, and one pie/circle graph. Copy and paste the data set into the correct tab. So you will notice that there are tabs down here that say bar graph, line graph, and pie/circle graph. You are going to take whichever data set that you think goes into one of these, and you're going to copy and paste it in there and then make a graph. Okay. Um, so it says, for example, if you think that dataset 1 should be a bar graph, you would copy and paste the yellow dataset into the bar graph tab, and then you would make the bar graph on that page. Explanations of the datasets can be found below the datasets. So down here, it just tells you that in dataset 1, the data represents the distance in meters that a baseball travels over time in seconds. Okay, so you can see that there's up to 8 seconds. So how long or how far did this baseball travel during that 8-second period? And then in dataset 2, it says the data represents the amount of each color of Skittles in a bag. So if you bought a bag of Skittles and then you just pour it out and then sorted and counted all of the colors inside. Okay. And then data set 3 represents it's really the percentage of people that favor each pizza topping. It says the number of people in percentages. So here you've got a bunch of different pizza toppings and then how many or the percentage of people that like that topping the best. Okay. So the first thing is we have to decide which data set goes where. So let's just start with data set 1. This is showing an object's change in distance over time. Okay, so when we have variables that are changing over time, the best type of graph to show that is a line graph. Okay, because we can track it and kind of show how it's moving over time on that graph, right? If we were going to use this for a pie chart or a circle graph, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Some people might be tempted to use a bar graph. It's certainly you could do it, but it's not going to display the data the best way. Then you're just going to have bars that sort of would make the line anyway. So it's just busier than it needs to be. They're not categories, so we don't want to use a bar graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight from, don't include this part that says data set 1. Just highlight at time and drag down here all the way to 45. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this. I'm hitting Control C on my Windows computer. You would hit Command C on a Mac, or you can just right click it and go to copy. And I'm going to go down here to the line graph, and then I'm just going to hit Control V or Command V to paste that right there, or just right click and hit paste. And so now this is right here ready to go for a line graph. Let's go ahead and graph it now. So you're going to highlight all the data, and there's two ways to start a graph. You can either go up here to insert and then hit chart, or you can highlight it, and this is really the easier way to do it. Up here on this toolbar, you will see the chart emblem right there. We can just click that, and it will create a chart for us. If you don't see that on your toolbar, it's likely done what I have right here, where I would need to hit these 3 dots, and then it's right there. Okay, so sometimes it hides it from you. Now, I'm going to move this graph over here and move my face so that we can, work on the right side now. Okay, so this has actually already created a line graph for us. Just so you guys are familiar with it, when you have your graph, it will automatically come up with that sidebar. But if it goes away, just double click on it and this comes up. Click on setup and then chart type. We can go through all of these different types of graphs right here. That's a scatter chart, which is similar to a line graph. It just does dots instead of keeping it a straight line. But we do want the line chart. This would be what the bar graph looks like. And this would be another type of line chart or area chart. But this is what we want right here, okay? And so you can see that distance is on our y-axis and time is on our x-axis. Now, the way that this is set up is that in Google Sheets, whatever you put on this left side when you highlight something, so it doesn't matter where it is on this page, it could be these two columns right here. Whatever's on the left side ends up on your x-axis. So time is on the x-axis. And distance here, whatever's in the second column, ends up on your y-axis. All right. Now, we want to clean this graph up a little bit. There's a couple things that we need to do. So if you click on Customize and then go to Chart and Axis Titles, which my mouse is a little frozen here, Chart and Axis Titles, this right here, we can actually type in, that will be the title right there. Now, you can actually just double click on this and type right on it, but sometimes it doesn't show up, so you have to go over here and use this, okay? And then when I want to go to my Y and X axis here, I would just use this drop down and click on vertical or horizontal. We got motion activated lights in here, so I'm just going to leave them. But I want your title to not have units in it. So I took out the meters and I took out the seconds. So it's just distance versus time, okay? And the way that we typically set up graphs is whatever's on your y-axis goes up here in the title versus whatever's on your x-axis, okay? So this is showing us that the baseball was moving along distance-wise. It's moving up towards 10 meters by 2 seconds here. And then by 3 seconds, it's at 15 meters. So we can kind of follow that along on here. Now, this part where it's flat is interesting because it's not moving, right? So that means that the object stayed in the same spot for a while, okay? And then it continued on. All right. Now, is that realistic for a baseball? No, it's not going to move itself, but maybe it was rolling, right? It was rolling on the ground. It got stopped by something, and then it moved and kept going, something like that, okay? All right, let's go back to our first tab, which is actually difficult because I can't see it, but there we go. All right, so now that we have our line chart, or our line graph, let's take a look at dataset 2. So dataset 2 involves counting and sorting colors of Skittles. So that is a great type of graph or a great set of data for a bar graph because we're sorting things into categories of colors, right? So we can use those bars to show how much of each category. So that would be good. This would be impossible to do a line graph for because one axis would have words on it and that wouldn't make sense. So we're not going to do that. And then the pie chart, technically you could do a pie chart or a circle graph. I think that the best thing to do is if you're looking at percentages, use the circle or pie graph. If you are looking at categories and counting and its numbers, use the bar chart. So let's go ahead and copy this, Control C. We're going to go to the bar graph tab, paste it in right there. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and then I'm going to hit the chart here. Now, remember, whatever's in the first column here is going to end up on your x-axis. So yellow, green, red, purple, and orange ended up over here. Number of each color in each bag is over here. All right. Now, this is not what we want. We don't want a line graph. We talked about that. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to double click on this. I'm going to move it a little bit here. We're going to go to Setup, Chart Type. We're going to change this from a line graph to a bar graph, okay? And then that looks much nicer. It really helps us see the different categories here and what, how many of each Skittle are in the bag, okay? Now, just for fun, with something like this, you don't have to title this the same way. You don't have to say number of each color in bag versus Skittle color. For this type of graph, you could put something like number of Skittles in bag or something like that, you know. Number of each color Skittle in bag. That's fine for the title here, okay? If we're looking at like a line graph or something, I really want it as y-axis versus x-axis. This, you can kind of title it with whatever we're doing. Now, just for fun, if you double click on each of these things, you can actually change the colors. So you could actually make it, the Skittles colors here and make it a little more interesting for the viewer. And I think that's good. So now that graph looks really nice. We could change the font up here, that kind of stuff. You can change the background color as well. So if you just go to chart style, we could change the background color to like a nice gray or something like that. A soft yellow, whatever you want. Okay, it doesn't matter. So just so you guys have some options in editing your graphs. Okay, so there's the bar chart. Now, with our last data set, obviously the only one we have left is the pie chart / circle graph, but let's just talk about the fact that it has percentages here, and that's typically going to be when we use the bar or the circle graph / pie chart. It would be hard to graph this data as a line graph or a bar graph because we're in percentages. Okay, so when you see these percentages, probably the circle or pie chart. So we'll go ahead and copy that, go to the pie chart side, and we will put that down. Now, once again, we're just going to highlight and hit insert chart up here. And it's automatically given us a bar chart. So what we will do is hit setup, chart type, and we're actually going to scroll down here to pie. There's different types of pie charts. This is like a donut chart. This is the 3D pie chart. It's no different than this one, but we're just going to go with this. So percent of people, you might name this one, favorite pizza toppings. Okay, that would be fine. Now you can see here that it shows you each sliver and a percentage for these things. Really, this is finished. You don't have to do much with this, but we could just take a look. You can change some things like the background color again. I might, whoops. I changed the border color. So there's the background color. I could do a black border or something like that. Just make it a little bit more interesting. And then there are some things you can do. If you click on pie chart, you could make it a donut hole. So that'll put the hole right there. Okay, you can change your border color again. And you can change this so that the labels, you could do like the percentages on the circle chart. If you hit value, the percentages there, the labels. Now, when I hit value, if I had numbers down over here, it would put the numbers right there. And then this would tell us the percentage. But I don't have any numbers. I just have percents. So that's why it's the same all around. And then, so we'll leave it as none. I like that a little bit better since you can't read on these smaller slivers anyway. So there's your pie chart. So now you've made a bar graph, a line graph, and you've made a pie / circle graph. So anytime we need to make a graph, you can refer to this and it should help you. If you have any questions, please let me know.